Howdy,
Good morning,
it's Ellie
Sam.
for Sunday Snacks. Today we're going to talk to you about taking time to appreciate everything. Maybe not everything. I don't like fart jokes.
I don't like the F word.
There you go. But taking time to appreciate the small things in life.
Yeah.
Ellie and I were talking earlier about the idea that she's had a major energy shift because you got real sick in January.
Yeah. I thought it was COVID, but I don't think any of the symptoms really matched COVID. I'm not really sure what it was, diarrhea, vomiting, the whole thing. Definite cleansing. But when we were talking this morning, I couldn't help it, as I explained some of the things that have changed, I couldn't help but wonder if it wasn't almost like a detox of sorts from the past 2 years. I don't know. But it was after I was sick, my energy level went up amazingly. And there was a clarity that I haven't had in a long time. And as a result, I started, working a little part-time job again, like 10 hours a week. Um, I just started doing more in a day. Um, and I can't help but think that 2022 people are just, regardless of how they dealt with the last 2 years and what the future holds, I think 2022 brought us to a place where we had to make some choices and
Start over?
enjoying ourselves again. That it doesn't end because life gets tough. And I think Sam had mentioned, what was it you were talking about earlier that I said maybe you just need to
Cut the fat?
Oh, well, no, that you need to, oh, you were talking about feeling like you do a lot, but you don't feel like you accomplish a lot.
Yeah, I mean, with two kids at home, I know I'm always on the go, but I don't ever feel like I accomplish anything.
Right.
And that's where this whole conversation came from, is that
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned that maybe at the end of the day we need to stop and just take stock of our day while it's fresh in our minds, and along with the running, stop and say, well, what did I do with my time today? Because I've been known to look back and say, I don't know what I did today, but the day went. But when we become focused on it, I think a couple things happen. We can realize either that we wasted the day, just being busy, or we actually accomplished something. And I think our productivity is important, but I also think stop and take kind of an awareness of that busyness, because it's not just busyness. Those are your priorities. So maybe give yourself credit for and grateful that you have the time to do those things, like for your kids and the running and everything. I think we put that into categories that make us more stressful, but maybe we should say, I'm glad I'm able to do those things.
Yeah. I mean, I was telling you before, I think we had this conversation a long time ago, is that I had a networking call where somebody called me just a stay-at-home mom. And that has really negatively impacted the way I see myself, I guess. And it is one of those things that I'm having to overcome. And I think you constantly reminding me of taking that moment to appreciate daily, what am I able to do for my family? Because at the end of the day, I'm still running a business. Some people would call what I do in my backyard a micro farm.
Yep.
I'm homeschooling my kids. I make a lot of my food, from scratch and preserve a lot of things. And I'm also really involved in my community. Maybe not as a volunteer in those kind of things, but I'm involved in my community, like where I live, and helping my neighbors and taking care of those
And you're not
people.
just taking your kids to and fro, you're involved in a lot of their activities.
Yes, I am involved, like with scouts and things like that. field hockey, karate, all the things, all the things.
Yeah.
So it's hard to sometimes, when you hear somebody say you're just a stay-at-home mom, it's hard to see value in what I do. But now, like, as I've learned, through, prodding, lots of very kind prodding, that, I need to take a step back and say, okay, what are my values? What are my core values? Taking care of my family is the number one in my life. And, providing my kids with a solid, strong education is number two. And, being able to do that and still run a business and still do all the other things that I do is worthwhile.
Yeah. It's when you don't feel it's worthwhile that you need to stop and question the busyness.
Yeah. And I tend to feel busy.
Yeah.
Versus successful because I grew up with, you have to, hearing from the business world, oh, you have to have your 3 core things that you need to accomplish in a day. What are they? But you know what I'm talking about, because all the gurus out there are saying, well, you to be organized and to make sure you have this productivity hack and you do this and you block your time and you do all the things. That ends up leaving me feeling.
Am I allowed to ask if that's mostly men? Let me give a little history here, though. I find it interesting that you got so upset being considered only a stay-at-home mom. The 60s and 70s, that was the issue, and you were terrible if you went to work. And then probably the 80s or so, women were positive they could do it all.
I'm not.
And then we came around the corner and discovered that, family leave and all these things kind of matter also, because sometimes we can't do it all at the same time. Yeah. And so it's almost like a deja vu to hear you say, they just called me a stay-at-home mom, when there was a time when moms were trying hard to be considered important when their fellow women friends were headed for the work world.
Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know if we ever get away from those, because it all depends on what everybody thinks is important.
And I think that's the crucial piece, is to constantly, for me, is to have to remind myself, what are my core values? Why am I doing this? How is it important? And stop comparing and despairing, because I do see other moms who are also entrepreneurs, and they're like, I made, a 6-figure month, or I made a 6-figure year. Yay. But then I have to remind myself, is what they're telling social media real?
Yeah.
And is this just a gross number? Because if you break down business wise, and we look at it from a very hard and fast number standpoint, which I can be a complete tool about, are we looking at your gross income, or are we looking at it as what is your net income and how much you're taking home in a paycheck every day?
And what services are you paying for?
Yeah.
As opposed to doing them yourself. And that's not a good or bad comment.
It's not.
But those choices are what we're talking about.
And they really make the difference. And when I get into those modes and you poke me, which I'm very thankful for, because if you don't have somebody in your life that's poking you to remind you that you're doing great.
Hey, she got me on video, so she pokes back.
I do. I'm not going to lie about that. I do. But if you don't have somebody, like, you should really look for that person in your life, because it honestly, it can't be your spouse. I mean, maybe
you're right.
It can, but I don't feel, for me, that that's a healthy relationship. My husband has his role in my life. He doesn't need to be that kind of a cheerleader for me. Like, we need to have autonomy as a relationship versus other things.
Well, and we like anyone, it's like kids. They go to the neighbor's house and eat something that they won't eat at home and come back and brag about it.
Seriously.
It's the same with the people most intimate in your life. Sometimes are the hardest to help you see things differently, because we take it all so much more personally.
Yeah.
Whereas, your neighbor can tell you ought to think of it this way, and you'll go, oh, maybe I'll think about that, because it's not as it doesn't come from such a hard spot to take.
Yeah.
And I think that's valuable. To hopefully everyone has somebody who encourages them.
Yeah. It's huge. If you don't have that, I really recommend. There's Meetup. There's lots of other ways that you can start to meet people. I recommend not doing it on social media.
Yeah.
Some people like that anonymity, but I personally find meeting a person, a living, breathing person.
Yeah, I don't need
be
pumped up by 100 likes. I just need somebody to actually hear what I just said.
And even sometimes hear what I just said and call me on my crap.
Yeah.
There are times when you sit here and you're like,
your kids can't be quiet because you're not quiet.
Exactly. Take a deep breath, Sam. Okay.
Relax.
But they're valuable points to hear. And if we don't hear them, we're missing out on a whole level of life and appreciation. If I can't appreciate my day-to-day life, how am I going to appreciate tomorrow or the next day?
Well, and if you feel less than, then how do you ever have satisfaction?
You don't.
And you should have. You've made choices, and hopefully they're choices that are right for you at the time. And
they can change, and that's the hard part
the other
for me.
Part. Yes, they can change. Yeah, yes. Oftentimes we set a goal and think we have to do that forever.
And that's sometimes where I mentally get stuck on that hamster wheel.
Like I gave up.
Yeah.
When maybe, no, I just took a detour for a while.
Yeah. And that's huge. I mean, especially when you talk about energy and you went through the 70s learning all the cool healing stuff that's only now becoming popular. Some of it's new agey, some of it's witchy, some of it's, I don't even know. I don't even understand. But it's definitely a level of what we're starting to appreciate more now as a society. And I think for me, that was huge. A realization of taking that time to appreciate simply 3 things that I've accomplished that day or just done. Taking my kids to the aquarium is not an accomplishment. But if I look at it as not an accomplishment, then what is it? It's just busyness. But in reality, I've given my kids an opportunity to see things and touch things and do things that they might not have had regularly. They definitely weren't able to do at all during COVID. We were able to explore, learn something new. But if I just look at it as it was a trip to an aquarium.
It also is part of your core values.
Yeah.
Because your core values are your kids.
And that is something that...
And we miss that sometimes.
Bingo. And that's where I get hung up a lot. So remembering to appreciate even the small things really will change your day, change your viewpoint.
And you won't feel so lacking of something when in actuality, and I think part of that is when you look at all of that, if there's things there that you really weren't comfortable with, don't do them next time around.
And I can change them.
Find a way to change. Yeah.
I can change. And it's not, not everything's written in stone, which is what I tend to
life is a journey.
Live by.
It's a journey. It's not an ending. It's a journey. There's no, we should know by now that no matter where we are in life, it's not ever quite enough because humans are curious and like new things. And so it's the journey. And as we do things and we learn and grow, then things will change, if things ever return to some semblance of
pre-COVID
used to, maybe
pre-COVID,
some of the things we thought aren't important now will become important again. But in any case, also, I think in the last 2 years, I think people need to look back and give themselves credit for what they did handle.
It was a lot.
Yeah. And continue to handle. And I think we need to stop wringing our hands and start saying, wait a minute, I'm still here. Life has been tough. We've lost people, we've lost friends and family, but we've also learned to appreciate a lot of the things that we didn't stop to do before. Yeah. So I think when we lose those, the value of those changes, that's when we've actually lost, But if we stop and think about it, and for instance, you have a lot of skills that you were able to offer your family, even though you chose not to work as much. But it's been in many ways, a beautiful 2 years for your family, for some of the things that you were able to do, that when you were both working in an office and away and the kids were in school, that dynamic would have changed.
It would have definitely
changed.
So
I think we need to just look back and say what worked and what didn't. What was good about today and what would I like to change about that tomorrow.
So in the comments, do us a favor and tell us what you are appreciating about your life. Be it as small as you found a sticker of gum that you might not have remembered that you had in your coat pocket,
or a quarter.
Or you found a penny, heads up, whatever that might be, however small it might be. Share that with us in the comments. We would love to hear, because you are important and you have value, and you need to appreciate all the little things and the big things too.
Absolutely. Have a great 2022.
Woo!